Okay, today I wanted to talk about some omens. Omens are a great way to just kind of take a shortcut with astrology, and we need those sometimes because there's just so much math and calculations and so many techniques, so many things to factor in. So that's part of why I like to do readings outside if I get the opportunity. Um, if you can be outdoors in nature, you don't have to be, but I mean, because really omens can happen even indoors with technology and things like that too. That can be an omen as well. Everything around you is an omen in a sense because life is always communicating to us. So whenever you have a strong question, the answer is really there just as strongly. It's just a matter of whether we can find it or not. That's the philosophy, at least, that omens are based upon. And that's really all we are doing with astrology, is you're asking me a question, and I'm looking at what does nature have to say about that question. That's really it. And so it's based on the truth that nature is intelligent itself, and that everything is intelligent. There is this like infinite intelligence everywhere at all times. It's just a matter of tapping into it. The yogis knew about this, so Vedic astrology sort of comes from this, and it's one of the coolest things to me about Jyotish and doing astrology. So I wanted to share just like a few examples. I wrote some down of real-time omens working for me in my practice, even just regular things, not even in questions. This is going to be actually like a series of videos because there's really so many factors, so many examples that I could share. So one neat example that just recently happened. Most of the ones I'm going to share with you today are going to be focusing on Saturn omens. Omens that can symbolize or say similar things as to what Saturn might say in the chart. So there was this one day within the last month or two that a Western astrologer came over to my house and got tutoring from me. And that was really cool because in general, in my life, my age really hurts me. It really hurts my career, and that's even shown in my chart. Sorry, the shadow just came in, but I don't know if you can see me very well or not here. Whatever. So my age really hurts me. I can just tell a lot of times from the stuff that I say that if they heard the same thing from like a 70-year-old wise person, wise person, quote unquote, someone who they conceived of as, okay, this is the person who can tell me the truth, then they would hear it from me. But because they don't conceive of me that way, they can't really appreciate hearing what I have to say, or they just don't hear it. So, for example, like I might have had even more wisdom a few years, when I was younger and I was only doing Kriya Yoga and only meditating, and I would just spontaneously always give really good counsel to people who needed it because all I did at that time was meditate, and I didn't watch TV or anything. So why wouldn't I? But still, people never really like took my advice because they were just like, oh, you're just Corey. Like, I used to be a skateboarder, so it'd be like skateboarder friends or like my older brother. He can't conceive of me as having knowledge over him, you know what I mean, or being able to give good counsel, or my father, or just like all these like authorities or like people who, mostly men, because men are a lot more stubborn. We're a lot less open to our feelings and our emotions and to trying things, and our egos are based more on knowledge and intellect. So if you don't, men are always like, I know more than you, or that's where the whole idea of like mansplaining comes from, even though women can do that just as much if they have a strong sun or a strong Mars. So that has happened a lot to me in my life, and just in general, like people really, I noticed this with not just myself, but with lots of people. Like for example, Ernst Wilhelm. If he was coming like an Indian man from like a established lineage of families, then he would, everyone would love him. But because he's like a Westerner and he misspeaks all the time and he has typos in his books and in his writings, people oftentimes overlook him. I myself overlooked him for a long time. Now I have to admit that he's he's definitely the best astrologer in the public eye that I have found. Um, but that's, so much so that, he doesn't even do readings because he's so booked up and he has hundreds of people waiting for that. So anyways, that's neither here nor there, but that's the little thing that I was really impressed with. This older man who's like in his 50s, who's a Western astrologer, he's in astronomy, he knew Robert Hahn, he knew Krishna Das from back in the day in New York, he'd been around a lot, and I was just really like impressed that he had the humility to even come and get a tutoring lesson from me, because he's like, yeah, I've always wanted to learn Vedic astrology, and now there's like a Vedic astrologer in the same town as me. There must be a reason for that. Let me go and get a lesson. And it was great, and we both shared and interacted a lot and had a great interaction. But I was just impressed because it would be really hard for me to have studied astrology for like 20 or 30 years and then gone and learned from some, me being in my 60s, and then go and learn from some guy who's just 30. You know what I mean? And uh, that that takes a strong Saturn, essentially, is what I'm trying to get at, is having humility. And so, anyways, when this guy was coming over, I saw a ton of reptiles on that day. I saw like just tons of reptiles. There's just like lizards everywhere on the porch here, and I saw some turtles somewhere, which aren't that common. I think I might have had to like move one across the street. I can't remember, but I saw like more than one turtle, which was odd. And then I saw here I wrote it down. Yeah, I saw skinks, or salamanders. I'm not sure which of the two they're called. And then I even saw a little snake run around that day. And so, like, I just kind of knew right away, like, this guy must have some incredible connection to reptiles, and this guy probably has planets in Capricorn, or something to do with the strong Saturn or Capricorn, because Capricorn is a sign of the gator or the crocodile or the big giant aquatic animals. The word alligator just comes from alligator, lizard, so like the giant lizard. So little lizards are Saturn symbols too. They just lay in the sun and they're lazy most of the time and they take it easy. That's actually what Saturn needs to do. Um, so basically, he came over for a little bit of tutoring. I didn't mention it then or anything. Um, and then after he left, I saw even like 3 or 4 more lizards or reptile. Some of these things, like some more skinks, some more lizards. Oh, saw tree frogs. That was another interesting thing. It was like the first time I'd seen them this year. And so I was just like, oh, and he had mentioned something about species identification because he had some Virgo stuff. We were talking about Mercury. Um, so I knew he was like sort of into something about wildlife, I knew, but that was it. And so I texted him after that. I was like, man, you must have some fascination with reptiles or some strange connection to reptiles, since I saw so many come by that day. And he was like, yeah, I'm actually like obsessed with reptiles, and specifically like identifying reptiles, and especially turtles. He wrote back in his text and sent me a little like image of a turtle. Emoji or whatever. And I was like, oh wow, that makes so much sense, because this guy actually had 4 planets in Capricorn, and one of them was Saturn, the sign of the Gator, or sorry, the planet of the Gator in the sign of the Gator. So yeah, it made a lot of sense that, okay, wow, this guy really knows his reptiles and is really into them, and I already knew right away that he had a strong Saturn, or I gathered that from him. And what does a strong Saturn do? A strong Saturn, like, knows, it just admits where it's weak at and goes about trying to work on that in a healthy way, not trying to like compensate um, or trying to pretend like it's not, or do all these other things. And so that was kind of cool, because I sensed that, man, there's a lot of magnanimity here, or there's a lot of humility here, that this guy is a senior astrologer and is open to pay me to learn some Vedic astrology techniques. It was just so refreshing. It made me so happy, because I'm just so over all these people trying to pick fights with like different schools of astrology and stuff. So That was fun. And then I shared with him that, which you guys might know, that the avatar of Saturn is Kurma, the turtle. So the turtle is actually, there's this whole myth with a turtle, and I'm not going to go into all that there, but it's from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's part of the Hindu religion. That one of the avatars of Vishnu was a turtle. So turtles are an incredibly divine, holy form, such that the Lord Vishnu himself took the form of one once, and as an avatar. And so, this is just really cool. He didn't know that. I hope he appreciated that. I don't know, but I think I really appreciated that he was this man with such a strong Saturnian reptile stuff in his chart, really did have an objective reptile connection in his life. He had a great love for turtles and identifying reptiles. Like I myself, I don't care about any of that. I don't have a lot of Virgo stuff in my chart. I just don't care. I want to know, like, what does the turtle mean? Why? You know what I mean? That's the Jupiter stuff. That's kind of more what I have. But I have other friends who have a ton of Virgo stuff. They don't care why the turtle is there. They don't care what the meaning is. They just want to know, yes, that's a Galapagos turtle, and its scientific name is this, and blah blah blah. And so that was kind of neat that he was really into that, and he had done some work with that. Um, so I hope that's kind of like a good example. Um, if not, if you guys have any questions about that, let me know. So when you see those sorts of animals in a positive fashion and they're not hurt or dead or dying or being attacked or you're not threatening them, then it usually means that if they're just revealing themselves to you in nature, like if right now a turtle walked by, that would just be a good omen of Saturn. It means whatever you're deeply thinking about right that now or at that moment, whatever action you're about to take is likely going to be an action that is has good Saturnian karma to it. Does that make sense? I hope so. Here's another quick example. When I first, this was when was this? Yes, this was the summer or the late summer to autumn of 2015, and I was, doing full-time astrology. I just quit my day job, quote unquote. After, gosh, I mean, most people would have quit their day job earlier, but I had been doing full-time astrology for a long time, or not full-time. I'd been doing astrology for a long time. I quit my day job. I was a little worried about if I was going to make it doing astrology. Even though I made a lot much more money, but I just happened to fall into a situation where I had a great deal of expenses show up. So I was like, oh no, am I going to get dragged to have to move, have to do all these things that in order just to stay alive, not be able to continue doing astrology. Um, and I was thinking that with another friend as we were driving back into my home, and at that moment, I stopped to check my mail, and then my mailman was like, "Hey, there's a gator in the lake, man. Watch out!" And I went and checked, and sure enough, there was a little gator in the lake, and that was the first time there had been any gators in this lake, and they weren't very common. And that was an immediate. It created a total emotional change inside of me, and it just really felt like my question was being validated, that like, yes, you're going to be able to make it, you're going to be able to survive, you're going to be able to like overwinter here, because the gator had just moved into the lake, and he was going to, if you know about gators, then they don't really move in the winter time when it's cold. They just stay and hibernate and save their energy, and they don't waste their energy, which is another Saturn thing. But so it was planning to stay here for the winter, and then it basically did, and it barely moved a lot of the time. That was another really cool thing that I learned from Saturn, was like people were literally shooting at it. These other neighbors who, I live in the south, so most people think of a gator as just like, ooh, let's hunt it and kill it and everything, and so people were even shooting at it and it wouldn't even move. um, that was unbelievable. That was really admirable. And so I was just learning lessons from that gator all winter. Um, so that was another omen of basically like, you're gonna make it, and hey, I may not make it, but it's been 2 years since then. It's been a full 2 years, and I've been making it, doing full-time astrology with 3 times the expenses I ever had earlier in any other part of my life, and I'm still surviving. So that's good. Um, Here's one more omen that's related to Saturn. Is basically the first time I ever went to do readings at like a festival or an event or a farmer's market or anything like that. The morning that I was leaving, or no, it was that evening. Yeah, the first it was like an evening thing, and then the next day was a full day thing. I was leaving, and I had a lot of anxiety, which is normal, and I was just unsure how it would go, and I was just a little scared. I was gonna go and do my best. And I saw a little rabbit. There's a little rabbit in my yard that morning, or that evening. Sorry, yeah, it was like sunrise or sunset. It was like that twilight time. There's a little rabbit. I was just like, oh man, what? Like, what are the odds of seeing a rabbit? They're not very common in here, and there's not enough woods really for them to even be around. But you occasionally see them. You know, even in the back of I've seen a rabbit over there behind this once. This summer in the early morning. So they're not that common. Yeah, so I saw that rabbit, and I knew from my from all my studies and all that the rabbit, according to the Native Americans, symbolizes fear. And because the rabbit is like the animal archetype of when you're afraid and you're calling fears to you. Like the rabbit, according to Native Americans, the rabbit will be like, "Don't come eat me, eagle! Don't eat me! Don't eat me, hawk! You know what I mean? Don't eat me, coyote!" And so it shouts out until they hear him and come and eat him. So it symbolizes like your fears getting the best of you, and don't let them get the best of you. So if you see like a dead or a hurt rabbit, that means that your fears are getting the best of you and you're creating problems with more fears. If you see a rabbit that's happy and fine, it means don't fear anything. Stop that. You know what I mean? Don't create any more fears. Be happy. Be like a rabbit that just has no weapon whatsoever but somehow survives and has since time immemorial. Um, so that was a really cool one. And so when I went to the market, I did great, and it was one of those festivals or events where it was like run by people who kind of didn't had a little bit of delusions of grandeur, and they charged us like $200 for an event that like 50 people maybe showed up at. You know what I mean? Like it was like it was like 5 times the price of what the overhead should have been. Everybody else didn't make any money. I didn't. I just barely made like $15. So I made like $215. But still, I was like the busiest person at that event. I was just doing readings, like much cheaper than most people, and I stayed busy. I did 16 readings during that evening and that full day, and so it really, a lot of people were coming up to me like, man, you must be really good, because like everyone who's gotten one has come back for another one, and this and that. And it was very, very validating to me. And then I was also like the youngest person there. Everyone else was like people, in their 40s or 30s or much older. And we were all very like very disappointed with the turnout. But that wasn't my fault. I did very good. That was some other managerial thing. I'm not going to do another event with those people again. That's okay. But it was a major validating experience, and this happened during my Saturn return as well, which is a time when Saturn really like takes you and turns you into who you're meant to become. Yeah, so I think that's good. Those are probably some good examples. I've got plenty more, and I actually plan to write a whole book about these when I get time. So any thoughts or feedback, I invite them. Let me know what you think. If you liked it, like it, share it, whatever, all that stuff.